Coming up on New Day at Arirang, South Korea called for a stronger message for the complete denuclearization of North Korea at the ASEAN Regional Forum senior officials meeting. There, Seoul's Deputy Foreign Minister strongly condemned the North's latest missile launches, describing them as a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Japan was among 5 countries elected on Thursday to hold a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council. It's the first time in 6 years the country has been elected to that position. BTS is set to release its new album, Proof, on Friday. The much-anticipated anthology will also include 3 new songs.
Hello and welcome to New Day at Arirang. It's Friday, June 10th, 8 a.m. here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm Woo Seung.
And I'm Yoon Jin. Thanks for joining us this morning, because over the next hour, we'll be giving you a look at some of the biggest headlines of the day and, of course, experts' insights on key issues facing Korea and the rest of the world. Our top story this morning, South Korea's senior diplomat urged countries in the region to deliver a stronger message for North Korea's denuclearization while addressing the ASEAN Regional Forum senior officials meeting.
The message also comes after multiple rounds of North Korean missile tests throughout the year. Kim Yo-sun has our top story.
South Korea called for a stronger message for the complete denuclearization of North Korea at the ASEAN Regional Forum senior officials meeting from the 27 participating member states. Seoul's Deputy Foreign Minister Yoon on Thursday strongly condemned the latest missile launches by the North, describing them a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. He also laid out plans of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration to help strengthen the North's economy and improve the quality of life for its people if the regime resumes dialogue. The forum is the only regional multilateral scheme which Pyongyang is part of. The day before, Yo took part in the East Asia Summit senior officials meeting, during which he also urged participating countries to exert a firm and unified voice against North Korean provocations. The foreign ministers' meetings of the ARF and EAS are slated to be held in August. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Seoul's top nuclear envoy stressed the importance of a unified and resolute stance from the international community against North Korea's provocations. Kim Gon made the comments to his Chinese counterpart during their first phone meeting. The 2 officials shared their assessments on regional security and exchanged views on ways to handle the regime's recent missile launches. On the subject of a possible nuclear test, Liu Xiaoming agreed on the need for close bilateral communication and cooperation. Japan has been voted onto the UN Security Council for a record 12th time. It was elected to the Council on Thursday for a 2-year term starting January 1st next year. Japan was last voted onto the Council in 2015. Switzerland, Mozambique, Malta and Ecuador were also voted onto the Council along with Japan. The UN Security Council has 15 members, 5 of which are permanent, filled by the US, Russia, China, France and Britain. The rest are voted in for 2-year terms. Japan's appointment comes at a time when the Council is facing challenges due to Russia exercising its veto power over its aggression in Ukraine. President Yoon Suk-yeol will host a lunch meeting at his office with the ruling People Power Party leadership on Friday for the first time since taking office. Attendees will likely include the party's leader Lee Jun-suk, its floor leader Kwon Sung-dong, and Yoon has been stressing the need to work closely with Parliament over state affairs, something he may reiterate at the meeting. Top office officials have already said that the government needs cooperation from the ruling party, particularly to resolve economic difficulties. The meeting will also be the first since the ruling party's landslide victory in last week's local elections.
Now, President Yoon Suk-yeol appears to have broken away from his predecessors in terms of communication. The South Korean leader focused on strengthening the Seoul-Washington alliance, the economy, and social integration. Yoon Jung-min helps us look back at the first 30 days in office.
Friday, June 10th, marks exactly 1 month since Yoon took office as the president of this country. Every step of the prosecutor general turned president's way has been marked with firsts, but for the presidential press corps covering the South Korean president, his morning commute to office and the daily stop behind the press line are definitely some of the most welcoming changes.
저는 원래 한 달 됐다, 1년 됐다에 대한 특별한 소감 같은 거 없이 살아온 사람이고 열심히 해야죠. 지금 시급한 현안들이 한두 가지가 아닙니다.
In his first 30 days in office, President Yoon focused on strengthening alliance with the U.S. with a one-on-one with U.S. President Joe Biden, during which the two reaffirmed their commitment to a global comprehensive strategic alliance and agreed to reactivate talks on extended deterrence. He's also been stressing the importance of long-term growth with a special emphasis on the semiconductor industry.
첨단 산업으로 우리 산업 구조가 고도화되지 않으면은 우리가 앞으로 우리 사회 체제를 유지하기가 어렵습니다. 그래서 반도체는 이 첨단 산업 구조 체계 내에서 가장 핵심적인 분야입니다.
Another area of focus for President Yoon in his first month has been national integration and unity. His effort to close the regional divide in South Korea has been apparent in a number of instances, with the most prominent one seen last month when the conservative president led a train full of his cabinet and the entire ruling People Power Party to the May 18th pro-democracy memorial event in the liberal stronghold Gwangju.
What's key from here on is how well the new president handles pressing challenges that lie ahead, such as North Korea's growing missile and nuclear threat, particularly amid signs of an imminent seventh nuclear test, and inflationary and recessionary pressure at home. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Now, the European Central Bank on Thursday said it's raising interest rates next month in what would be its first rate hike in more than 11 years. The Governing Council announced that it intends to bump up key interest rates by 25 basis points in July, and another hike may follow during September's policy meeting, but by how much depends on the medium-term inflation outlook. Now, currently, the central bank's deposit rate is at minus 0.5%, but this could be back above zero by September. The latest Eurozone inflation estimate hit a fresh high of more than 8% in May, way above the European bankers' expectations. The ECB said in a statement that it will make sure inflation returns to its 2% target over the medium term. Now, in the meantime, South Korea's central bank believes the country is not at risk of stagflation. Still, officials are keeping an eye on inflation, which is at a historic high. The focus of monetary policy will be on stabilizing prices. Shin Yeon reports.
While we may be seeing a soar in consumer prices at present, South Korea's economy isn't expected to slow down anytime soon. That's what the Bank of Korea said on Thursday. Deputy Governor Park Jong-seok told reporters that there's no need to worry about stagflation. Instead, the country's economy has the potential to grow significantly, especially since the government has lifted almost all COVID-19 restrictions, as this means more people are out and about. The Bank of Korea finds that more people are shopping in at stores rather than online. In December of 2021, 77% of all consumer goods were bought in person. In just 4 months, this figure increased by 1.9 percentage points. But while we may be safe from stagflation, we are in danger of more inflation. Consumer prices in Korea jumped 5.4% last month, the steepest on-year increase since 2008. The Bank of Korea traced risks of inflation to the weaker local currency, the Korean won. From January to March, the won slid by 7.5% against the dollar from a year earlier. Officials also attribute the soaring prices to the ongoing war in Ukraine. Since the war broke out, global supply chains have been disrupted, raising the prices of oil and other commodities. To contain inflation, the Bank of Korea has raised its policy interest rate by a total of 125 basis points, from a record low of 0.5% since August. Officials are set to continue focusing monetary policies on stabilizing prices, by raising the policy interest rate by 25 basis points at a time, instead of taking big step raises of double that amount. 신예은, Arirang News.
K-pop sensation BTS is making a highly anticipated return to the music scene Friday with the unveiling of their anthology album titled Proof. The album, which consists of 3 CDs, is made up of songs released during the 9 years since the group's debut. And among the album's 48 tracks, there are 3 new songs yet to come: Run BTS and For Youth. BTS will promote the record by making appearances on domestic music programs, something the band hasn't done since 2020. And it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into some of the key issues in the spotlight right now. And as we reported earlier, BTS will be releasing its much anticipated album Proof at 1 p.m. today, midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Will this be the summer of BTS yet again after the group dominated the US music charts with its hit song Butter? To find out, we connect with Hugh McIntyre, a music industry journalist at Forbes. Good morning to you. And well, first off, can you tell us a bit about BTS's latest album drop? What makes this album so special other than the fact that it's a BTS album?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Proof is a really exciting release for fans because it puts together all of their biggest hits, as well as a few songs that we haven't heard a lot, 1 or 2 that have never been released on an album before, the new songs, as you were saying, and fan favorites that they've been championing for 9 years, and they now get to have them all in one place and listen and celebrate at once.
So I guess the album in itself is special, but what's all the more special for all the ARMY out there, the fandom, is the 3 new songs that they're also releasing. So can you tell us a little bit more about these 3 new songs on its latest album?
Sure. So the big single that I think everyone in the world is going to be listening to and talking about, maybe for the entire summer, is yet to come. And it doesn't appear until the album is released, so we haven't heard it. We don't quite know what it's going to be, but it has the power to become their next global hit. And I think that's really exciting to wait and hear.
We saw BTS just absolutely dominate global music charts last summer with their single Butter. From my nephew to my grandma, they were all singing it. Amazing, really. And do you think we can see BTS really dominate once again this summer?
Absolutely. I mean, again, we haven't heard it. We have no idea what it's about, really. But when it comes to BTS, don't count them out. They've had 2 summers in a row where they've released a song that has completely dominated. It's hit #1 in America, in other places in the world. It went on to be one of the biggest selling and most successful songs 2 years running. So they're releasing it at the right time. It's early June. This single could become huge. I mean, it's BTS. It's going to be big. The question is if it ends the summer and maybe even the year as the biggest song or one of the biggest. So we get to see.
You know, as someone who's been listening to K-pop for a really long time, even before it became so big worldwide, I'm still trying to grasp the idea that K-pop, BTS, is so big globally. But we know that BTS was able to win a number of awards in the past, MTV, American Music Awards. There is still that very elusive Grammy. And what does BTS need to do to grab that Grammy? It seems like as though BTS has basically done more than enough to be recognized in the global music scene.
When it comes to the conversation around Grammys, I follow it closely, especially when it comes to BTS. It's important to remember that the Grammys are different from other awards because they're not about sales or chart positions or anything like that. It's just about what's the best. And of course, that's always going to be subjective. So it's a bit of a shame they haven't won, but there are a lot of other artists who have been doing this a lot longer, who've been successful a lot longer, who don't have Grammys. I mean, Katy Perry, Nicki Minaj, they've all been nominated more than 10 times and they don't have a Grammy. So BTS doesn't have one yet, but they've only been nominated twice. So I would love to see them win one, but give it a little time and wait until there's not so much competition.
And Hugh, well, BTS has become very popular with their very happy, feel-good songs, especially during the summer months. And do you think that's going to work this time around, this summer, with the same kind of concept going forward? Or do you think maybe the US listeners or the US fans are hoping for something different?
In the US, the competition for Song of the Summer, it's kind of an official title, is always really fierce. A lot of people want that title. BTS won it last year. And typically it does go to a song that is upbeat, really catchy. It's the kind of song that you can play at outdoor parties and bars and in your car when you're driving around. So BTS has done a really great job of nailing that mood and that sound 2 years in a row. Now, can they do it again? Absolutely. I mean, they've shown that they can. The question really is, can they find a way to reach the masses in the same type of fashion, but without delivering a song that's too similar? So I think the trick is really in giving something that's different, but the same. So I think if anyone can do it, they can. And I'm really excited to hear their twist on the summer hit.
Hugh, just really curious because, again, you're in the music scene there. I mean, we don't have a chance to listen to any of the radios that are going out in the U.S., although I grew up listening to a lot of radio as a kid. But I'm sure BTS songs are coming out on the airwaves there. But what about some of the other K-pop groups? I mean, do you find that some of the other K-pop groups and their songs are coming out in the U.S. airwaves?
So I write about charts a lot, and one of the charts I write about is a radio chart, and I watch very carefully for when K-pop acts earn their first hit or they hit a certain position, and there have only been a very few that have reached have been successful enough at radio that they've charted. So we've got Luna and Blackpink and TXT and one or two others, but they haven't yet broken through with that like huge smash. So they're on the way and they're getting there. And it'll be really interesting in the next couple of years to see more and more of these Korean acts rising higher and higher, reaching larger audiences, and following in BTS's successful wake. They've opened a lot of doors. The radio DJs and programmers are more open to foreign language songs, artists from other countries. So I don't know that there's a huge radio presence yet for K-pop artists, but it's absolutely beginning.
Well, thank you for your insights today, and we hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks.
And that wraps up the first half of New Day at Arirang.
But stick around. Coming up next in the second half, do you love soju? Well, might be a bit too early for soju now, but we find out why the humble green bottle is going from the cheap to chic in dialogue this week. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
South Korea's experience in tackling COVID-19 and introduced a Korean New Day. A Korean survivor of Japan's wartime sex slavery met with
extraordinary climate crisis and pledged to work with the EU to tackle the challenge.
The objective of its North Korea policy is
protesters gathering across the country to peacefully demand an end to hate and violence.
Arirang, what matters?
넌 볼 수 없고 가질 수 없어 뚝뚝 힘을 쏟아내도 뜨거운 자태 한번 비추지 않고 내게만 가치란 그녀는 유명한 서울의 별 다 어딨나 In your eye 걔와 함께면 넌 디스토피아 내 발걸음 따라오면 유토피아 나의 so good right now. Maybe I had a drink or two, but this somehow feels like it's forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Maybe this is forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Forever.
And welcome back to the second half of New Day at Arirang. South Korea plans to launch its first space rocket developed with domestic technology.
And this time around, Nuri is going to carry over some real satellites. Han Song-woo provides a glimpse of what to expect.
South Korea's first fully homegrown space rocket, Nuri, will lift off for the second time next Wednesday. Its third and final stage has been attached, meaning the vehicle now awaits final adjustments over the weekend and a dry run operation on Monday.
Dry run means that there will not be any fluids like the fuel, oxidizer, or gases. Those fluids are not involved in the operation.
The Korea Aerospace Research Institute has been focusing most of its efforts on upgrading the rocket's third stage, which failed to put a dummy satellite into orbit during its first run last year, by burning out earlier than expected, despite Nuri reaching its target altitude of 700 kilometers. Nuri will blast off from the Naro Space Center in Gohung, Jeollanam-do Province, likely sometime between 3 and 5 p.m. This time, with a close to 1.5-ton payload including several functioning satellites, one 180-kilogram performance verification satellite, and 4 mini-cube satellites.
But in second launch, we will have all 6 satellites. So one is the PV set performance verification satellite, and four of CubeSats, and the other is the weight simulator, like the first launch.
Authorities have reserved June 16th to the 23rd as the rocket's launch window in consideration of variables like bad weather. Should it succeed, South Korea will become the world's 7th country to launch a space rocket independently capable of placing a satellite weighing over a ton into orbit using domestic technology. The nation's invested more than $1.5 billion into the Nuri project since 2010. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
Researchers say South Korea is experiencing dangerously high levels of ozone, something that poses a direct threat to our health. It's caused by chemical reactions that occur when there's pollution and strong sunlight. Cho Min-jung explains further.
Amid a persistent spell of dry weather in South Korea, the average ozone concentration level hit an all-time high in May. Though still within the normal range, the concentration level for last month stood at 0.051 parts per million. This is around a 20% increase on year, as well as the highest figure ever reported since data was first compiled in South Korea in 2001. The ministry says this record is mainly caused by increased solar radiation from more sunlight and a decline in the amount of rainfall. The amount of solar radiation recorded in May was the highest since 2010, while precipitation levels for the same month hit a record low. Experts say exposure to high ozone concentrations harm people's health, with effects especially seen on the respiratory system, the eyes, and skin.
Masks are not helpful in reducing the inflow of the gas into our body, so people should try to stay indoors when there is excessive sunlight.
Experts also say people should use public transportation instead of driving when ozone levels are high. The government says it will raise awareness of the need to follow this advice and will inspect companies that emit significant amounts of air pollutants. Choi Min-dang, Arirang News.
Now, over in Daegu, an office building caught fire Thursday morning. Now, the blaze was extinguished, but at least 7 lives are lost. The police actually do suspect arson here. Lee Si-hoo has the details.
A 7-story office building near the Daegu District Court caught fire Thursday morning at around 10:55. The fire was extinguished in around 20 minutes but has resulted in at least 7 deaths. Around 40 more have been injured. According to the fire department, initial reports described a cloud of black smoke rising from the building's second floor and a loud bang that sounded like an explosion. Some 50 fire trucks and 160 firefighters were dispatched. The fire department has conducted 2 searches throughout the building and said that everyone has been evacuated. The fire department also said that the ground floors of the building did not have any sprinklers installed. While the exact cause of fire is being investigated, the police do suspect arson. The building held many law firms due to its proximity to the courthouse. In fact, the police have a suspect, a person who had complaints about a lawyer who worked in the building regarding the outcome of a case. The lawyer was out of the office at the time of fire, while the suspect was among those reported dead on site. CCTV footage acquired by the police reportedly shows the suspect on the day carrying an unidentified object covered by cloth into the building.
We've confirmed through CCTV investigation that the suspect carried an object out of his home, clutching it with both his hands.
Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
It's rather early in the morning, but it's time to talk about soju. Now, soju is a distilled liquor made from grain or sweet potatoes, widely consumed by South Koreans from its iconic green bottles. With fiery but slightly sweet and uncomplicated undertones, soju is the spirit of choice on most occasions, whether it's to celebrate or drown your sorrows, socialize with friends, or simply pair with grilled or stir-fried dishes. Now, its rather low price point of around $1.50 also makes it a beverage of choice. And, well, in recent months, though, soju has been undergoing a major image overhaul from being cheap and widely available to an exclusive delicacy, with master brewers and celebrities launching their own premium sojus, which have been selling out at prices 10 times higher than the humble green bottle. So it's all the rage in Korea these days, and we want to hear all about it in our dialogue this week. For this, we're joined by Andres Sanchez-Brown, Korea correspondent at Agencia F Spain news agency, and Brandon Hill, founder of Toki Soju. Very warm welcome to you both, and we have a lot to talk about here. Unfortunately, no soju between us, but, well, my first question to you, Andres. Now, how long has soju been enjoyed in South Korea, and what's really the difference between the traditional and the more modern variations that we're seeing these days?
Soju, traditional, what you will call distilled soju, dates back to around the 13th century, when during the Mongol invasions, Koreans learned distillation techniques from them and started elaborating this drink that was basically distilled from a sort of rice wine. You would ferment grain and then distill this drink to obtain what was called soju back then. The newer version of it, those green bottles that you were mentioning, stem from a law that was passed in 1965 to control rice. And because so much rice was used in the production of soju, Korea actually told distillers that they had to come up with a new recipe. And this recipe was basically using ethanol that was made through starches of not rice, but in this case, sweet potato or tapioca. And then there was water added to it and sweeteners and flavors. So we can call this new cheaper version of soju, which is widely popular now, diluted soju.
Right, and Brandon, well, you have your own soju company, really. And well, tell us about your first experience with soju.
My first experience happened during my time at University of Hawaii. My dorm mate was studying from Korea. And he introduced me to not just soju, but Korean food and Anju culture. And we instantly became close. And I just kind of fell in love with the Korean culture and Seoul culture around it as well.
So really, from that first taste of soju in university, how did you end up developing your own in New York?
Oh man, that's quite a long story, but I'll keep it short for your program. In 2011, I moved to South Korea to learn traditional Korean soju techniques, and that was Year of the Rabbit, and that's kind of where Toki gets its name from, was my time learning traditional Korean alcohol. And from there, I moved to New York, and New York's Korean food scene had kind of elevated, that you had places that were getting Michelin stars like Danji and Jungshik, and the connotation for Americans was Korean food was very healthy, very high end. And one of my friends in Brooklyn was opening a Korean restaurant, and he asked me to start making their house soju, and it just kind of organically grew from there. And I think soju just kind of found me that way, which was great.
And Brandon, well, vanilla seems to be a key ingredient in most of your products, and you use very high quality, locally produced rice as well to make your soju. So what really inspired these choices of ingredients?
Yeah, I've heard vanilla a lot. I think a lot to what Anders was talking about earlier. Prior to the 1960s, soju was made from rice and had a really rich history. And I wanted to kind of celebrate that and kind of show what I learned. The vanilla and the sweetness and comes from the rice. We use chapsal, which chapsal is like the sweet, sticky rice. I wanted to use a sweeter version because Korean pop culture with the green bottle is now used to the sweeteners and kind of associating soju with those artificial sugars and sweeteners. So I wanted to use a sweet soju without using sugar or additives. So that's why we use chapsal, which was common during like the Shilla and Chosun dynasty. And we do everything in-house in traditional Korean style fermentation, but we've kind of bringing it to the modern realm by using new, more scientific techniques.
And Andres, now the image of the green bottle does still bear very strongly in our minds when we think of soju. But the thing is, we have so many options these days, from the traditional green, well, the regular green ones that we think about, the fruity ones, and now these premium star-studded types of soju. So when do you think this diversification of soju really started?
This law that we were talking about, the 1965 law, was to say canceled in 1999, if I'm not mistaken. So from there, little by little, the problem was that all these traditional distilled soju producers weren't in business anymore. So you had to start building all this infrastructure to get people interested in distilling soju the traditional way again. But little by little, just like alcohol industry has actually changed a lot within the past 40 years. And I think one key point in this sense is actually that the industry is appealing way more to women than it did before. That would be, for example, one reason why producers of the traditional green bottle soju actually started lowering the alcohol content, because more women were actually engaging in consumption in this case, and just as your customers, your target groups get more and more diversified, then producers of the green bottles actually started thinking, well, you know what? A lot of people don't actually enjoy the taste of our product that much. Why don't we start adding even more artificial flavor to it? And this could be pomegranate. You have all kinds of tastes today, all kinds of flavors to the green bottles. But also, as the customer base grew and became more sophisticated, then a lot of people, and you, as you pointed out, celebrities or big soju green bottle soju producers like Height started producing this distilled soju again, appealing to people that are actually looking for a drink that has a better taste, a better smell, that doesn't have to be, finished on the spot, and that not necessarily does have to get you very drunk, right? It was all about, people wanting to enjoy soju in a different way.
Right, so it no longer has to be something that's quite repulsive and you just want to get it down as quickly as possible. But Andres, now soju, it has still been a very iconic drink for many Koreans across all age groups, really. And well, it's now arguably a national liquor that's very widely available and, of course, very, very cheap. So where's really the market for more expensive, very premium soju then?
Oh, well, I think there is a more market for premium soju. And actually, Brandon just mentioned it, suddenly people want different experiences. Soju, green bottle soju is ingrained within, let's say, a part of what it means to be Korean nowadays. People are still going to keep drinking the green bottle, I think, because, you associate it with I don't know, moments, little things in your life. It can be you having drinks with your college friends or you celebrating something with your family. That's always going to be there, even though for people that actually don't like the flavor that much. I think that's not going to change. But on the other hand, people that actually like the taste of a nice rice-based distilled drink, that actually has a lot of space for growth. People want different experiences. We can see just for example, as the number of single malt whiskey bars has multiplied in Korea for the past decade. I think it's multiplied by 10. Within the past decade also, the number of companies actually producing distilled soju has doubled. That tells you that there is room for growth and there's people interested in enjoying a proper soju drink in this country and also overseas. I think in the next few years, we'll see a growth as Hallyu gets more and more popular globally, so does, food and drinks. So I definitely think that we're going to see growth for distilled soju beverages domestically and globally as well.
Definitely there's this huge cultural significance to soju here in South Korea. But Brandon, while it's quite fascinating that Tokyo soju actually started in New York and then it made its way over into the Korean market, and there were people looking for it and trying to get it online because it wasn't available in South Korea. So what do you think really distinguished your product from other soju varieties in the market that South Koreans began importing it?
I think we had the advantage of starting in New York, where a lot of people didn't have the connotation of it being kind of a low-end alcohol. It was still kind of new to Americans. And so we were able to kind of showcase it on an elevated platform from the beginning, and it was accepted. And I think as far as the Korean market goes, we had a huge advantage starting in New York, where New York is, such an iconic trend-setting city. And soju doesn't have a delineation on where you need to make it, where soju does not have to be made in Korea. So I think it was just interesting that for many Koreans that something like this was happening outside of Korea for the first time. So I think that was a kind of a massive advantage for us, just the intrigue a foreigner creating it at the beginning.
And Brandon, it seems to be, it seems that Toki Soju was very well received overseas as well, globally really. Toki Soju Black Label, it won gold in the New York International Spirits Competition, if I'm correct. So what really draws non-Koreans to soju, do you think, compared to other types of liquors?
Yeah, we're lucky that all of our spirits have been really accepted, not just the soju, but everything we've made so far has at least gotten a gold medal in the international competition. And I think because Westerners are very adventurous eaters and drinkers, it's not unusual for the American diet to have sushi and sake, or European wines and European food. They're very adventurous eaters. So I think the intrigue and the initial spark of trying something new is really exciting for Westerners. So I think that's where the initial appeal came from.
And Andres, do you think that the high-end soju market is going to expand? I mean, and what about the traditional green bottle soju? Are people going to keep on drinking that? You did mention this earlier, but how do you think those two types of soju are going to fare in the Korean market?
Well, as I say, the increasing, let's say, search for sophistication in Korea. You're seeing more and more people. Actually, Brandon just spoke about being adventurers. I think Koreans are becoming more and more adventurers too. And unfortunately, a part of becoming adventurers is rediscovering a drink that was essentially Korean, like soju, like distilled soju. Now it's a time for Koreans to rediscover this heritage and enjoy a drink that, when you're in search of something, of a perfume, of something that smells maybe like fruit or flowers, and you want that taste that came from fermented drink. You want that purity, not the artificial sweeteners that are in the green bottles. And that said, of course, we've seen actually how the green bottle market has not only kept growing in Korea, but also overseas. So I don't think the green bottle market is going anywhere as of now, as I said, because it is already a part of Korea's modern culture. And when it comes to overseas, you can walk into many supermarkets now in Europe, for example, and see green bottles all over the place, and they're not sold cheap, by the way, not as cheap as in Korea. I don't think the green bottles are going anywhere. They're here to stay. And as with the still soju, I think there's a lot of space to grow. Right now, I think the taste for the appetite for sophistication is quite big right now in Korea. So I just hope that this industry actually, maybe with a little government support and good local networking as well, can keep growing and bring delicious drinks to the Korean market and the global markets.
And Brandon, well, Toki Soju is now widely available in South Korea in convenience stores, I believe, and it's expected that the market for premium soju is going to grow bigger and bigger. So how do you aim to stay ahead of the competition? And just before we go, can you share a recipe with us for all of us who want to enjoy a soju cocktail over the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now, with the premium soju market staying, I don't really see it as competition. I think that it's great that more brands are coming to market and giving light to the category, and I think it's continuing to grow. It's continuing to get global support. I mean, if you look at this panel right now, you have two non-Koreans talking about their love of soju, which, if that doesn't say that it's glowing globally, I don't know what does. So I think that's great. Right now, I think more brands, more styles is a good thing. I don't really see it as competition in that regard. I more just want to bring it to the global market and have it understood. And I think bringing more brands into that equation is only beneficial at this point. Well, we make a handful of spirits as far as recipes go, but we have a bar in Hongdae in Seoul where we make all kinds of cocktails and flavored elixirs based on Korean ingredients. So I would definitely divert you to my bartenders. They're much better mixologists than I do. I'm kind of a purist. I love drinking our spirits neat for the most part. Toki Gold and Toki White, I drink neat or just with food. And I love the Toki Black with, actually fruit juices is my favorite. I drink with orange juice, kombucha, and it makes a mean Bloody Mary as well.
Well, you might be a purist, but perhaps you should take Andreas's advice and try and rediscover the soju a little bit more, and maybe this weekend. And well, I'm afraid this is where we'll have to wrap up this interview today, but that was Andres Sanchez-Brown, Korea correspondent of Agencia FS Spain news agency, and Brandon Hill, founder of Toki Soju. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us here.
The Korean animations have recently been garnering greater global recognition. Regardless of the recent success, though, some experts point out the need to provide greater support for the domestic animation industry. Kim Bo-kyung has the full story.
All eyes were on the movies and actors at this year's Cannes Film Festival. But one area that might have been overlooked is the animation sector.
At Cannes, just 9 animated films were selected from more than 3,500 entries for the short film category. One of those 9 was Persona, a 6-minute animation by young Korean director Moon Soo-jin, the first time a Korean animation has been shown at the festival.
And other Korean animations have also been in the spotlight recently. Last February, director Hyung Yoo-mi's House of Existence was selected for the Berlinale Shorts competition at the Berlin International Film Festival. And at the annual short film contest Digicon 6 Asia 2021, Chun Seung-bae's animation Battery Daddy won the silver prize, while Animation Ghosts won an award at the Tricky Woman Animation Festival. Such global recognition comes after years of effort. The Korea Creative Content Agency has long been supporting directors producing independent animations and has helped get them shown in front of global audiences. It has supported all of the previously mentioned films and also runs several programs to train those who dream of working in the animation industry.
I applied after hearing that I can systematically learn how to use the Unreal Engine tool and also get employed to do the actual job training. By making animations as a team project, I'm learning how to use the real-time rendering program and motion capture system.
Though Korean animation is getting global attention, an official from the KOCCA says there are still not enough training programs.
Korean dramas and movies are gaining global popularity, and that is because there are training sessions that let more directors and producers develop their capacity and shine. But the animation industry lacks such programs for fostering young talents.
But with more financial support and attention, the KOCCA official says the Korean animation industry can be a big success. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. 2 Britons and a Moroccan captured while fighting for Ukraine have been sentenced to death by a court in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. The court issued the sentence on Thursday, finding the 3 men guilty of, quote, mercenary activities and claiming that they attempted to seize power and overthrow the republic's constitutional order. The 3 men were captured while fighting for Ukraine against Russia. The families of the 2 British men have insisted they are long-serving members of the Ukrainian military and not mercenaries, having lived in Ukraine since 2018. A spokesperson for UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson called the case a show trial, citing immunity guaranteed to combatants under the Geneva Convention. The International Atomic Energy Agency said on Thursday that Iran is removing 27 cameras used to monitor the country's nuclear sites. IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi remarked the action could deal a, quote, fatal blow to efforts to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, saying Iran could divert centrifuges used for uranium enrichment to other unknown locations. He added that although roughly 40 cameras remain, further removal would hamper the watchdog's ability to observe Iran's nuclear activity. The move by Iran follows an IAEA vote on Wednesday to censure the country after it failed to explain traces of enriched uranium found at 3 undeclared sites. In a feat of sports diplomacy, Israeli football fans will be able to travel to Qatar for the World Cup in November, despite the two nations having no formal diplomatic relations. Israel made the announcement on Thursday after reaching a deal with FIFA, saying visitors will be able to freely travel and attend games during the tournament. Israelis can normally only enter Qatar on a non-Israeli passport. Under the terms of the deal, Israelis must first purchase a ticket to a game, then apply online for a fan ID card. So far, 15,000 Israelis have bought tickets for the World Cup, despite their team's failure to qualify for the tournament. A wildfire in southern Spain has forced around 2,000 residents to evacuate. The town of Benahavis in the Andalusia region was partially evacuated amid fears that homes could be engulfed by the fire. 1,000 firefighters as well as military personnel and support crew have been deployed to battle the wildfire, and 3 firefighters have been injured so far. Local authorities say the fire started on Wednesday afternoon on the slopes of a mountain in the Sierra Bermeja area. A total of 21.5 square kilometers of land has been burned, with strong winds fueling the fire. The PGA Tour has indefinitely suspended 17 golfers for competing in the Saudi-backed Live Golf event near London. The PGA Tour Commissioner announced the suspension on Thursday, adding that any players who participate in future such events will be subject to the same measure. Players who lose their membership will also be removed from the FedEx Cup points list. Among the golfers competing in the Live Golf Series are Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, and Sergio Garcia. The series is backed by an investment fund chaired by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, named by a U.S. intelligence report as responsible for approving the 2018 murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The Crown Prince has denied the allegations. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good morning. Temperatures are warming up again, and today's daytime highs in Seoul will be about 4 degrees higher than yesterday. And we will see readings rise above 30 degrees over the weekend with a chance of sudden rain today and tomorrow. So inner regions will be seeing some sporadic rain from the evening commute. That's including here in Seoul, while more regions will be seeing passing rain on Saturday. Morning temperatures are similar to the same time yesterday. Sunny skies to start off the day with strong UV rays. Then daytime highs will be 2 to 5 degrees higher this afternoon. Daegu, Gwangju topping out at 30 and 29 degrees Celsius. More clouds to move in for the latter half of the day, but decent air quality expected nationwide. Southern regions in Gangwon-do province will see frequent rain early next week, while morning temperatures will start to hover around 20 degrees Celsius. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
That wraps up our newscast for this hour, but we'll be back next week for our Monday's edition of Nida Arirang.
Thanks for tuning in, but also stick around for more updates throughout the day. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and as always, take care.